The establishment are keen for us to think of the deep state as a kind of conspiracy theory, as if it doesn't really exist. But Mike Benz, who you might know from Tucker, spoke to me personally about the influence of the deep state, censorship industrial complex, and the establishment when it comes to starting wars, rigging elections, and bringing down dissident voices. This is going to blow your mind. Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on this voyage to truth and freedom. Click the link in the description if you want access to our additional content. We are on the move now. We're speaking to serious experts about serious subjects. We are building something hard and fast that's going to change the world, and they know it. You can feel it in your own life. Sometimes it feels terrifying, sometimes it feels electrifying, but this is what change is all about. And Mike Benz is one of those voices that's at the very forefront of this conversation. You may have seen his viral conversation with Tucker Carlson, which I got sent by countless people. You got to talk to this guy. You got to talk to this guy. When things went crazy with me, Mike Benz posted a video that a lot of people saw talking about how those things work. On Tucker Carlson, he talked about how the deep state manage information, how they've been doing it for years, how they legitimize wars, how ultimately the Ukraine war could be referred to and regarded as a CIA operation. I had a conversation with Mike Benz where we talked about the censorship industrial complex, how it operates, how they crush dissent, how powerful it truly is, how they cover their tracks, how they use legacy media as their outlets and as their propaganda arm. In fact, in a way, that's all that the legacy media are essentially for. This conversation with Mike Benz is one of those things that will change the way you understand how the world works now. The entire interview is available on Rumble right away now, but this is an extract that's going to show you why you have to watch the whole thing. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. Get ready to feel better educated and empowered by a true expert. You're going to love this.
You have basically this foreign policy establishment is what it's typically referred to in Washington. These are the elements of our national governments, both in the US and in the UK and in NATO countries, that are supposed to be foreign facing to manage, the empire, so to speak, but are supposed to be for the benefit of the citizens who live in that country. And what they've basically discovered is because of free speech on the internet, they've lost control over the bumper rails around democracy when media was typically controlled or intermediated by the state. And so now you basically have the foreign policy establishment against domestic populism, which is not a partisan issue. Left-wing populism and right-wing populism, both flank this kind of globalist or neoliberal sort of structure that we're describing. And so it's really not a partisan issue. It's not a Republican-Democrat thing. It's kind of a universal human experience now trying to fight against this blob.
I like that you've coined that phrase, the blob. And in many of my conversations lately, I've been quoting what you said about democracy, that democracy does not now mean electoral process and representation of the will of the people. It means the protection of a set of institutions. I wonder if you would elaborate on that idea as it pertains to, for example, the protection of democracy in Ukraine and the obligation of the American or British taxpayer to not advocate for a diplomatic end to the war in order to protect Ukrainian people, but an ongoing, potentially unwinnable, potentially eventually nuclear war with an indefatigable and difficult to defeat opponent. How does the use of the term democracy apply here?
Well, that's a perfect example. I just want to start with one quick clarification. I wish that I had coined the term the blob to describe the foreign policy establishment. Unfortunately, that distinction goes to President Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes, who used that term to describe the blob. And the blob loved the term so much that they now use that term lovingly to describe themselves. So right now on my X handle, you can I have a quote from Victoria Nuland's husband, since we're about to talk about Ukraine and a lot of the funny business going on over there. Victoria Nuland's husband is Robert Kagan. 1 week before the 2020 election, he wrote in Brookings a piece called "Respect the Blob." This was his advice for the next president of the United States 1 week before the 2020 election. He wrote, "Respect the blob, learn from the blob, love the blob." Wow. So this is one of the arch blob monsters whose wife is basically running the show of foreign policy in the hotbed of Ukraine, who's basically saying, if you want to have stability in your next presidency, you will love us and do what we say. In fact, you will learn from us. We are your master, not the other way around, which is really, I think, quite a profound insight that you can publish that publicly. and few will even bat an eye. But on the Ukraine situation, Ukraine has not had elections in 3 years. They banned elections a year and a half ago. They banned it again 6 months ago. It really is the archetypal example of democracy's redefinition from being a consensus of individuals to a consensus of institutions. We say that we are, in Ukraine to defend democracy. Meanwhile, there is no democratic vote. What we have there are, basically a set of what we call democratic institutions, which is a very, very nasty framing device intended to deceive people about what's really going on. See, we flood the zone with NGOs and civil society institutions, so-called civil society institutions, as well as getting hundreds of thousands of people on payroll in order to co-opt portions of the region that we are trying to politically control. So Victoria Nuland herself, I just read the quote from her husband, respect the blob, learn from the blob, love the blob. Victoria Nuland, when she was the head of the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, ahead of the 2014 coup that was jointly orchestrated by the U.S. and U.K. governments, Victoria Nuland was on a panel where she publicly discussed how they the State Department pumped $5 billion into Ukrainian civil society in the run-up to that coup. So that is, they capacity built a regime change instrument with $5 billion in taxpayer money. And that gets distributed to a network of NGOs. So, for example, there's an entity called the Ukraine Crisis Media Center. Now, I talked about this just last night on Dan Bongino's show. We had the biggest stream on the internet going through this, where we discussed the so-called Red Lines memo. This was a memo by the democratic institutions of Ukraine. It was 60 or 70 undersigned civil society institutions who all got funding either directly from the U.S. State Department, USAID, or CIA cutouts like the National Endowment for Democracy, or through the George Soros networks, who's partnered with the State Department and NATO, where 1 week into Zelensky's election in 2019, they described all of the red lines that if he passed them in terms of policy in Ukraine, it would cause so-called political instability, meaning that they would overthrow his government. He would become as unstable as his predecessors were. And it was on security issues, financial issues, cultural issues, national identity issues. If they wanted to change the language laws and allow Russian as a speaking language back in the state, that these 70 plus State Department and UK Foreign Office funded NGO swarms would destabilize the country. But that's what they mean by democracy. They mean a consensus of those institutions, not the people who live in Ukraine.
I am interrupting me in order to tell you something very important. It's a message on behalf of some of our sponsors. Are you ready to delve into the realm of self-care and spill the beans on a skincare gem that's as pure as honesty itself? In today's fast-paced world, we face skepticism towards authorities, uncertainty about product origins, and hidden toxins in everyday items causing significant and chronic stress. Do you know chronic stress can fast-track aging, leaving your skin looking old and wrinkly? Studies show that prolonged stress ramps up inflammation, breaks down collagen, and messes with the skin's defenses, all leading to premature aging. Enter Charlize, the antidote to life's toxins, and my #1 toxic-free skincare pick. This luxurious skincare isn't just about appearances. It's about feeling good inside and out. This world may be toxic sometimes, but your skincare doesn't have to be. Most other skincare lines contain, I'm sorry to tell you this, cancer-causing ingredients. Not Charlize though. The entire product line is toxic-free. That's what I love about it. By the way, Charlize products contain tangerine orange peel, which not only promotes immunity and enhances your mood. Look at the mood I'm in. I'm crazy with glee. But it also promotes cell turnover, hydrates and cleanses the skin, and helps improve blood circulation. Better blood flow means more nutrients and oxygen are delivered to your skin, enhancing its natural glow and promoting healthier, younger skin. Are you ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and luminous skin? Head over to charlize.beauty/brand and unlock a 25%, I can't even believe I'm saying 25% discount with the promo code brand. That's charlize.beauty/brand, promo code brand to get that 25% off. Remember, my friends, trust, transparency, and self-care are the essential elements of a vibrant life. Choose Charlize and choose the path to inner and outer radiance together. Let's get back to our content. Support our partners if you can. Yeah, that's extraordinary. And to learn of more of these peculiar marital partnerships like the one described between Victoria Nuland and her husband. In our country, Dame Caroline Dinenage, who's the head of our Department of Culture, who demanded successfully, actually, that YouTube demonetize me, and whose department has a lot of information on me that even Freedom of Information Act's requests have not yet fully revealed, who also is demonstrated pay groups like Logically AI as proxies to crush dissent, is similarly married to a man called Mark Lancaster. I don't know if you're familiar with this story, who operates PsyOps and formerly worked in crushing dissent or opposing foreign terrorist forces, and whose organizations have similarly been deployed against domestic populations in the same way as you've described. So whilst these institutions are what the Synecdoche democracy now represents, it is a truly global phenomenon. Do you know much about Caroline Dinenage or indeed Mark Lancaster? And do you see similar themes in the USA and UK when it comes to crushing dissent, controlling public discourse?
Totally similar themes. It's uncanny, actually. This is what's referred to as the transatlantic alliance. The U.S. State Department and the U.K. Foreign Office. There's almost no daylight between them. And in fact, one of the favorite tricks for U.S. citizens to be censored by the U.S. State Department or by the U.S. Pentagon, which are supposed to be foreign-facing, is for the State Department and the Pentagon to sign contracts or give grants to British censorship organizations. So almost all of the major U.S. censorship heavyweights have connections to the City of London. So, the Atlantic Council, for example, which has 7 CIA directors on its board, gets annual funding from the Pentagon, the State Department, and CIA cutouts like the National Endowment for Democracy, is London-based. You have the Center for Countering Digital Hate, London-based. You have the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, London-based. And every time these domestic censorship institutions, when you look up the chain, they are either U.S. or British intelligence, U.S. or British diplomacy, or U.S. or British, military, defense. So it's either defense, diplomacy, or intelligence. None of those are supposed to be impacting domestic citizens in either the U.S. or Britain, but they do, because the foreign policy establishment needs the money and it needs the mandate of the people who live here. So, we have a military doctrine here in the U.S. that we've observed for decades around the 4 sort of theaters of war. There's the so-called strategic, the tactical, the logistical, and the political. And these are 4 ways to win or lose a war. Basically your grand strategy, your tactics, where you're going to attack, the logistical, what kind of supplies and how you get the supply lines all lined up so that you can pull off the tactics to achieve the strategy. But the 4th category is referred to as the political theater of war, which is that you can win or lose a war simply by swaying the hearts and minds of the people who live in the target country to support or oppose the war. So, for example, the military establishment, still to this day maintains in large part that we lost in Vietnam, the U.S., not because we lost on the battlefield or we lost strategically or logistically, but because we lost politically. And the hearts and minds of the people who lived in the U.S. decided to defund the Vietnam War and decided to basically scale back the legal mandate for the military to operate there. And when George Bush rose to power and did, basically the Gulf Wars of the 1990s, there was that famous quote of "By God, we kicked Vietnam" syndrome. This new jurisdiction of the blob, of the foreign policy establishment, to specifically target domestic citizens to make sure that they cannot vote against the priorities of the foreign policy establishment, has completely inverted our grand conception of what democracy has meant since the French Revolution. Because what they're essentially saying is, listen, we're going to let you guys decide amongst yourselves about what kind of tax policy you want to have, or if you want a stop sign on your local street corner. But when it comes to foreign policy, the people of the homeland, are basically subjects of this foreign policy overclass. It's very similar to the way second world governments are often structured, where there's a hybrid government structure. Pakistan's a great example of this. There's a democratically elected prime minister, but there's a military and intelligence side of the government who controls all foreign policy formally. And when the prime minister attempts to change the foreign policy of the country, as Imran Khan did, they will get cooed out of office by the military. And this is essentially what we're living through right now, both in the US, in the UK, and throughout NATO. And, this is one of these things where if it's not stopped immediately, this is a cancer that will metastasize to the heart and lungs, and it's very hard to see a way out of it with another few years of maturity.
To see this interview in its entirety, click the link in the description. It's a mind-blowing interview. It's educated me. It's tooled me up. This is a time to educate ourselves. Remember, you can support our content by clicking the link in the description. We do additional videos every week on subjects like displacement theory. We get on brilliant guests, and we've got some fantastic guests coming, and you can join us live for that. Sometimes we do in real life events. Become part of this movement. Join us. More important than any of that, if you can, please stay free. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.